All right, people, we're going to be discussing the state of the MCU right now. We just had Thunderbolts come out, or not even the Thunderbolts. The New Avengers is what they rebranded this movie, but obviously, seems like that didn't really help it too much. Thunderbolts there, despite getting some really good reviews from both fans, from both critics there. A lot of people, it has not made a dent in the box office there. This movie on a budget of 180 million. Has a box office of 371.1 million dollars, so it didn't even crack 400 million. At least Captain America: Brave New World, at least that cracked over 400 million dollars. Um, so whether or not it's kind of breaking even or it's making a profit is still kind of a little bit discussed there of how much money it's made. But yeah, I think it's kind of fallen a little bit below expectations, especially for a Marvel movie. A lot of these are expected to do really, really well. But yeah, this got a great reaction here. Um, Lucky Dog, what are your thoughts here on Thunderbolts?
Thunderbolts, in a nutshell, it's a banger. I think it's exactly what the MCU honestly needed. It's got some of our classic characters that we've seen in other things, and other classic characters we haven't seen. Our non-traditional Avengers characters, but I think it has such a solid script that is enveloped with like deep emotion that many of these Marvel movies, let's just say since Endgame, have not uh, had the desire to pursue.
Mm,
And just coming from the angle that we're hitting it today, I just read the MCU cinematic universe book with Joanna Robinson and David Gonzalez.
mhm.
Let me see, the reign of Marvel Studios, and I think today we'll be able to kind of break it down how these movies are actually made from like we got Disney overhead, we've got the the creative team in the middle, we've got the Kevin Feige on another level, and then we got everyone behind the camera, which is the director and everybody else. And there's just this giant line of this line of order of everybody that has to say yes for something to happen. And whatever happened with Thunderbolts needs to happen with the rest of the MCU. They need to. It feels like they allowed them to be a little bit more creative and go outside the bounds of what they were originally doing for the past, let's just say 5 to 8 years, 10 years maybe.
Mm. So this is the 36th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is marking the end of phase. This was the end of phase 4, leading into phase 5. To my knowledge, right? I just want to make sure.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's doing
Yes.
that. So this was capping off that, and this was also, if you stayed at the stinger for all the end credits, all that stuff is typically Marvel movies do. It feels like with this stinger, really mattered the most out of the recent Marvel films there, because sometimes a lot of these stingers now are just kind of like, okay, this isn't really going to matter much. These characters aren't going to come back. This is, as the common joke goes, this is just Blurko, the Goobagop, that this person's not probably going to come back and do anything. They're just here. But this really mattered because at the stinger with this one, you had the Fantastic Four ship that showed up, which a
Hmm.
lot of, and then the Russo brothers are the ones that directed that stinger, and this is leading into Avengers Doomsday, and that being a huge event there for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's take a look at the movies that appeared in Phase 4 here of the MCU, and this is what it capped off here. So let me make sure here. Let me pull up the upcoming movies here for Phase 4 and Phase 5 here to make sure. So actually, this was, I was sorry, I was wrong. So this was phase 5 that this movie capped off. and then leading into phase 6. So I
Hmm.
made a mistake there. So this was the movies lined up here for Marvel Phase 5. So you had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium, which I thought was pretty weak. I thought that was pretty terrible. You had Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I liked a lot. I thought that was very good.
Hmm.
You had the Marvels, which I thought was pretty weak. You had Deadpool and Wolverine, which I thought was pretty good. I thought that was solid. You had Captain America: Brave New World, which I thought was pretty weak, and you had Thunderbolts capped it off. What did you think about those lineup of movies?
It's a hit and miss. It's really hit and miss. Let me see what the. I mean, you said Black Panther 2 was in that.
Black Panther 2 was the last phase. That was phase 4. Let's go.
Okay, so yeah, I maybe this was one of the weaker phases I can think of. It's wonky for me, but this phase at least, because the way that it ends, it feels like this is a new beginning kind of thing instead of an ending.
Mm,
For
yeah,
me at least.
yeah. Because phase 4. So let's compare it just to the most recent phase before this one. So you had Black Widow. You had Shang-Chi, Black Widow, which I thought was mediocre, but at least it gave us Yelena. And actually,
Mhm.
that this movie gave us most of the characters in Thunderbolts, actually, because you had
Mhm.
Yelena, you get Red Guardian in this, you got Taskmaster, even briefly was in Thunderbolts there.
Mhm.
So I give kind of most of the characters there. You have Shang-Chi, which I thought was really good until the climax of that.
Mhm.
Then you got Eternals, which I thought was pretty weak. Spider-Man: No Way Home, which I think gets weaker after every rewatching of it. The plot just doesn't really hold up.
Right.
Doctor Strange 2, which cool concept. I like Sam Raimi directing it. There's some cool things you can tell that's like Sam Raimi's influence, but I think it's held down by the MCU, and I think it's so much required to have prior knowledge of like watching WandaVision and doing all that before you actually watch Doctor Strange. This one,
Mhm.
Thor: Love and Thunder, which I thought was pretty weak, and Wakanda Forever, which was I thought strong. So I think there's more good in Phase 5 than Phase 4. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of seeing in this as well. Uh, the what was the weak one? Multiverse Ant
Multiverse.
Man.
Oh yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was this one, right?
That was phase 5, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the weak spot in this one. But you know, understanding that you know most of the movies that we watched between 2015 or let's just say 2010 to 2020, those 10 years of movies had so much more time and so much more pre-production, what feels like, and obviously uh didn't have the TV shows to go along with it. And so from what it seems like is it just feels like when they were trying to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak, on the Disney Plus of it all, it caused a split.
Mm,
I think it caused a split, and the effects houses. So basically, all these effects houses are going to Marvel and saying, "Hey, we can do this. We can do this. We can make the Hulk look like this for this amount of money." And so Marvel is trying to disperse their amounts to probably the best, the most affordable houses. And then some of those houses, the effects studio houses, cannot back up their end of the deal
mm, yeah,
because they're trying to undercut all these other effects houses.
yeah. And that was a big thing about the union and then striking there, and then the treatment of visual effects artists. I think we did a story about that,
Hmm.
of how people. I think yeah, we were talking about this article right here. Um, I think a while back when this came out. So this article came out in 2022. Yeah, I believe me and actually I think it was Sage there
Hmm.
talked about this, about just the overwork they kind of feel there. How that Marvel has these directors, because sometimes it's the indie movie director to big budget pipeline of like you get these directors who did like a small budget movie and now they've been elevated to doing these $200 million, $300 million films, and it's like they don't know exactly how to work with VFX houses and artists, and they expect things to be kind of changed on the fly, and that's just not how it works. And this article
Right.
details, I think they even talk about specifically Black Panther, which I think that had a terrible finale to it. The CGI on that looked terrible, like the rhinos and all that stuff like that. The fight at the end between Black Panther and Killmonger when they're in their suits looks terrible.
Right. Right.
All that kind of thing. So the amount of stress that they're putting on VFX people is so
Hmm.
intense. Like that kind of leads into it. And you mentioned the television series. So some of the television series that happened, this is phase 5. So the television series that came out during this phase, you had Secret Invasion, which was, I thought, terrible. I think that's one of the worst things that they've done, just in general, movie or show. They had Loki season 2, which I thought was really good. I actually really liked Loki season 2 a lot.
Hmm.
What If, which I think is just mid. I think that's just kind of mediocre. Then Echo is kind of meh. Agatha All Along is okay. It's whatever.
Hmm.
Your
Hmm.
Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man I thought was solid. I thought that was pretty good. Daredevil Born Again I thought was solid. I don't think it was as good as the Netflix show, but I think it has potential to be. There was a lot of behind the scenes, like they completely restructured that whole thing and changed it.
Hmm.
And I think season 2 is where you'll see the where it take a big leap. And then Ironheart is going to be coming out in a few weeks. That's going to be coming out. You have that. Do you watch the shows? Are you a consumer of all that stuff, the movies and the shows, or do you just stick to the movies?
I sorry. So yeah, we are a consumer of all the shows, all the TV shows, all the movies, just to kind of keep it all you know in sequence with the MCU in our heads. The only thing I don't keep up with 100% is the animation.
Okay.
I'm I'm a little bit behind. I've watched What If season 1. I haven't caught up to the rest of the stuff yet. I'll probably watch it when I get a good day off. Um, but if you would like me to kind of break down a little bit how I learned that a director can go into a Marvel movie in what feels like has little control.
Okay.
So before I read the MCU book, I was just like, okay, I blame the writers, blame the directors, blame those individuals that if something doesn't go right, it's obviously their fault on some level. Uh, Not exactly. Uh, what feels like the overarching project. Let's just say Black Panther is the project.
Mhm.
Ryan Coogler comes in. I would assume the majority of those action scenes are already scripted out. They're already in those they're in pre-production houses already started. Either being scripted, framed, or whatever. They're already begun before the director even starts. Now, obviously the director is, the puppet master, the mastermind behind everything, but from what it feels like in Marvel is they have a lot less control than what I would originally have said, even down to the writers, and that there are so many, uh, uh, cooks in the kitchen, to say, for lack of a better term, that sometimes it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Oh, that's the problem. Oh, they fucked up. Oh, this is where it all fucked up. Um, and I can only imagine that on a TV show. Because I would assume most everybody's working on the same project or has the same mind of for a movie. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're making an action film. We're making a spy thriller. We're making, that type of thing. Lucky Cat, that's a Doveweiser in the chat. What's up, man? Um, he's on our Fortnite streams all the time. Um, but yeah, like for me, I can only imagine like if Marvel was making a movie going to a TV show, the TV show is going to be so much more difficult for them to make because so many more cooks in the kitchen, so many more ways that it could mess up. Multiple directors, multiple. It's a lot of different things, that factor into it for a TV show as opposed to a high budget TV show versus a standard Marvel movie, which is high budget in itself.
Mm,
But a lot of cooks in the kitchen is what I'm trying to say. Um,
yeah. And directors have talked about that in the past there. I remember that the director, um, it was I'm trying to remember her name, but it was the director. She initially was attached to Black Widow, and then she fell off the project. But I think that she said that a lot of these action scenes are already pretty much created uh,
hmm hmm
there, and it's just about you fill in everything else. Like they already set up these big action set pieces. The script is already done there, and you just kind of come in and kind of do the rest there. I think I want to say it was Carlene Fauger who did Substance
Oh,
there, who did that and talked about that there. And I'll see if I can find that article. But yeah, she kind of made that point. So do you think with movies like because people talk about like Taika Waititi who does the Thor films, like those feels that people say those feels like his films, even though even to the movie's detriment, those feel like Taika Waititi films. And what do you think about that?
yeah, I agree that they might have let him off the leash a little bit too much on that one, so to speak. But it just, from what it sounds like, they had a good time making it. They what's it? Chris Hemsworth was feeling constrained between uh, Thor: Dark World and Thor: Ragnarok, and he was going to Feige, and he was like, "Yo, I need to do something with this character. It's Shakespearean and all, but we're beyond that, you know." So there's a combination of actor, I assume, meets director, meets producers, and there's a chemistry in that sometimes work. Let's just say it works with Ragnarok, and
Mm,
then for Love and Thunder, it didn't work.
mm.
So I couldn't exactly explain what happened behind the scenes of uh was it Love and Thunder? But
Yes.
I mean, we've seen it done right, which
Yeah.
I would assume is Ragnarok.
Yeah, which I like Ragnarok. I know it seems like the internet kind of turned on Taika Waititi a little bit. Like everybody hates the guy, finds him obnoxious now.
Yeah,
I haven't made that turn yet. I still like Jojo Rabbit. I think Jojo Rabbit's pretty good. I like that.
yeah. I like JoJo too. I'm a JoJo guy too.
Yeah. So this was Carlene Fauger there, who said that. So this is hers. He said. Right here. So she talks about her experience right there. It says it turns out it says here the most well-known and infamous story behind Marvel's search for a Black Widow director came from art house filmmaker Larissa Martel, who was quickly discouraged when she was told that to not to worry about the action scenes. There, Martel added, "It turns out some of the Marvel films are available on planes, so I've seen a few. I find the sound in them is absolutely in very poor taste. The visual effects and the sound of the effects is the selection of the sounds that are connecting to the effects, which is actually very ugly, and the way music is used is actually horrible." There that
Oh my god.
that the person kind of pointed out there. So there was kind of multiple directors here that attached it. So it was Larissa Martel there. That was the person that talked about that and talked about the experience there of turning down Black Widow there. So she
Mhm,
was that director there. Um, so yeah, and then the concern here is that you have articles like this that's talking about the kind of box office disappointment of Thunderbolts. Like you have articles like here from Screen Rant. It says Thunderbolts. It says disappointing box office marks the end of an era for Marvel Studios there. And I even mentioned that in my review. I was like, people waver between, Marvel's so back or Marvel's done and Marvel's so back and, this is the end of Marvel. And I remember even during that time, I think it was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which that movie only made like I think 400 something million dollars. He had a box office of 476 million there on a huge budget. That budget was over 300 million. It says here the budget on this was 388 million. So it didn't even do double its budget. Didn't even come close to even coming even with its budget there with that.
mhm.
And people thought that that was a huge disappointment and that Marvel movies are done. But then following that was Guardians of the Galaxy that made 800 plus million dollars on a $250 million budget. So that did really well, and that
Hmm.
succeeded. And it succeeded also. You think in a because that year when Guardians 3 came out was crowded because you had Little Mermaid around that time, you had Fast and Furious that was still out, you had the Spider-Verse movie that was still out. I think Mission Impossible was still out at that time. That came out around the same time as Guardians. So the fact that it was able to do that well amongst
Hmm.
that competition was very impressive when it did that. Do you think this is kind of just a huge overreaction when people say that? Like Marvel's done after this, after they have a movie that doesn't crack 400 million?
Well, it's just like I think that they're expecting Marvel to, you know, hit the jackpot every time. You know, uh, the I mean, what was the budget for the original Iron Man? Like 30 million?
Let me see real quick. I'll check it out. Yeah, we'll see what the budget
Like
of it was. It wasn't
I've
the wasn't a whole
one
lot.
140. Did I say
Uh,
that right?
yeah. So yeah, 140.
Okay, 140. Okay, so maybe I got my numbers wrong. But anyways, Disney paid. Do you know how much they paid for Marvel? You
Uh,
don't without looking it up.
I think it was a billion. I think they paid. Like
Close.
mm,
Four.
4 billion. Okay.
4.24 billion in 2009 for over 5,000 characters.
Mm,
So what that tells me is they have just a Rolodex, the giant book of all these characters that they have, uh, you know, immense amount of stories that have been already pre-created. Which for me, I feel like that's just like pick and choose. Like you could probably open up a book and just pick a story, and Disney, Marvel, whoever decides, Bob Iger is just like, all right, well, let's give them 50 million. Let's see what we can do with it. I think it's all about just managing the budget, because right now people are expecting movies to make uh 2018 budgets, or box office
mm,
numbers, and I don't know about you, but things are more expensive than 2018, twenty
yeah.
nineteen. So, you know, people are different habits. COVID's pushed people into waiting for a little bit more on streaming. Uh, I think that even though Thunderbolts isn't, quote unquote, just the mega box office success that they were hoping for, or that the tabloids are looking for. Maybe we could talk about the centers of it all. How they're getting, how that was all embroiled and stuff. Did they make enough money or not? Um, but quite honestly, I I think they're just fine,
Mm,
and I think it's all about just managing some of these budgets, um, managing some of these. Thunderbolts didn't necessarily have to have 8 movie stars in it. Let's just be honest, right?
mm,
the cut some of these mega stars that are asking for 5 to 10 million here and there, and you're already saving your budget. When they originally got uh, uh, Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., he was not at the top of his game. I believe they paid him very, very little for Iron Man 1, and then he didn't get his big payout till Iron Man 2. So a lot of these mega MCU movies that are trying to scrape 400 to 600 million dollars, maybe they don't need to have these, extravagant, uh, you know, action scenes that cost 50 million to blow up something, or maybe they don't need to have uh, an entire team of 8 superstars. I mean, who could have guessed that it would have been as famous as it would have been? I mean, Sebastian Stan, is nearly at the top of his power, his pinnacle, right? I mean,
mm.
Florence Pugh, one of the leading generations. young actors. Harbor, everyone knows him.
Yeah.
It was stacked.
Yeah. Yeah, Thunderbolts had some quite a bit of people in it. Um, and I think that the real test, because I don't believe in the, I got to see more like repeated, flops in a row to believe that this franchise is dead or it's not coming back. Like what happened with DC, it's like okay, you could see the writing on the wall of like they had to completely restructure everything and like they had to retool it after so many of it back to back and all these things weren't doing well.
Hmm.
The Suicide Squad, which I liked, but that didn't do very well, probably because of the failure of Suicide Squad before it. Shazam didn't do well. Black Adam didn't do well. So after that, it was like, okay, we gotta go back to the drawing board here, and that's they went to go get James Gunn, and now Superman's coming out, which brings me to my next point. So I think the real test is going to be with this film right here, which is Fantastic Four. There still hasn't been a good Fantastic Four movie. We're still waiting on that. But people say, "Well, shit, I don't need a good Fantastic Four movie. I got The Incredibles. That's already good enough for me. I don't need that." Um, this is competing against Superman, so this may take away some of its box office because it's coming around the same. This is coming out July 25th. Superman, I believe, is July 11th is when that movie's coming out. Yeah, July 11th. So it's taking away that. Um, yeah, I so if you could give a box office prediction, what do you think it is gonna be for Fantastic Four? And do you think it is gonna be a hit or
Fantastic Four is definitely going to be a hit. Now, how long it hits is going to be the question. I think they plan their uh, strategic cards right, putting it kind of right at the middle of summer, which allows it to play throughout as long as it can. Uh, till people go back to school, so to speak. I mean, what do we got? Pascal, um, who's
Vanessa Kirby?
invisible? Vanessa
Uh,
Kirby, yeah.
yeah.
It the and who's the who's
Human Torch is Joseph Quinn from
Quinn? Yeah, Quinn.
Stranger Things,
Yeah,
Stranger Things guy.
yeah. He's a big name. All of these. What's happening is there is a great blend of the people that we know, the millennials know, like the Pedro Pascals, but then we have the Gen Zs that recognize, the younger generation, such as the Joseph Quinns. They're like, oh, it's the guy from Stranger Things. Oh, it's the guy from Day One. Quiet Place.
Mm.
Um, you know, Quinn's getting around notoriety with the younger folks, I would believe, and I kind of put him just like right under like a Florence Pugh kind of in the fame meter.
Yeah. I had a conversation with Chris from the Black Stubbs podcast. He was on here, and we were talking about this trailer, and he was like, Joseph Quinn is like the biggest person to come out of Stranger Things. And at first, I paused. I was like, well, no, it's probably like Millie Bobby Brown. But I was like thinking, he's like, but no, Joseph Quinn's been in Quiet Place, which was a big movie. He was in Gladiator 2, which was a big movie. He's going to be in this, which is a big movie. And I was like, well, shit. I mean, yeah, because like Millie Bobby Brown, it's like, okay, she was in Godzilla. I remember her in that. And then
Yeah,
and then it's like, okay, what else does she really have? She has like those Alona Holmes movies, but that's just on
in
Netflix, you know.
Enola,
Yeah,
it's your girl Enola.
but this is on Netflix or whatever. So it's like it's not that huge. So I was like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, I guess he is kind of the biggest person to come out of Stranger Things acting wise.
he
There I
is.
would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
not including Harbor, obviously, but yeah, I'd say of that generation, he's really made a name for himself in the was it only one season he was in?
yeah, because his character died. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Eddie, yeah, just that one season, and
yeah.
yeah, now he's in a bunch of stuff now. So I was like, okay, yeah, you got a point.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you what it was. It's that Gladiator 2. Millie Bobby Brown does not have her Gladiator 2 on her resume.
mm, yeah, she needs to, yeah, work with somebody like that, like a Ridley Scott or kind of like one of those type of directors. There, I think that would kind of be better there. She was in that Russo brothers movie. Did you see that movie?
Electric State.
Yeah, that shit was that was pretty bad. But yeah, she was in that. Yeah.
She got paid for that. She got paid.
Yeah, so it's just like I don't know. It's like she's just. Netflix got a stranglehold on that girl, like, cause she was in that other movie too, that, Damsel. Did you just like, I saw that movie. I did not like that either. Uh,
Damsel?
yeah, it was like a Netflix movie that she was in. And she
I don't remember that.
okay, yeah, a lot of people probably didn't remember, and I probably one of the people who did. But I don't know, she maybe got a blood debt to Netflix or something like that. I was like, "Man, you gotta get out of
Something.
these Netflix movies." But you
She,
mentioned, so they paid 4 billion for it. So here's the profit. So this is they probably have to they're gonna update this pretty soon. This is from last year though, but just to give people a sense. This is when Deadpool and Wolverine came out, which by the way, that movie made over $1 billion, Deadpool Wolverine. It said
Mhm.
so the Marvel Cinematic Universe becomes the first film franchise to cross 30 billion at the box office. So they've made their money back in tenfold from purchasing that Marvel, all the Marvel characters there. They've made their money back
Mhm.
quite a bit from that there. And Doomsday is going to be coming out next year. It got pushed back. Um, that's also another it got pushed back there. In this movie, the budget on it is imagined to be pretty big. They're filming it back to back. They got all these stars in this movie. You mentioned that. The cast is going to be huge. Uh, I mean, it has to do probably really probably cross 1 billion to be very successful. And Robert Downey Jr. You mentioned how little kind of he was getting paid the first Iron Man movie, but now that's returned because he's getting a huge payday to come back and play Doctor Doom there to play this. But it doesn't seem like the hype is there like the same it was for Infinity War or Endgame, which kind of does that kind of worry you a little bit there?
I don't think the hype is going to be there until we get like 3 to 4 more Thunderbolts. Oh, hold on, my battery's exhausted. Let me get that real quick.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think the hype is there as much as like people talking about Infinity War. And I think maybe that's because a lot of these movies they had to change course midway because of the situation happened with Jonathan Majors. And at first it was going to be about King the Conqueror and all this. And then they had to go like, okay, well, we got to change it now to about Doctor Doom, Doomsday, everything like that. And I think a lot of what was phase 1, 2, a lot of what those movies, it was like, okay, we're building to something. We're building to creating the Avengers. Okay, now that the Avengers is good, we're building to something else. Thanos was always, at the Avengers lurking there in the first movie. So we're building to having them fight Thanos potentially in the future. Like that was always there. But now I think you haven't planted those seeds as well. Um, in these other movies like you did in the previous films, which I think that's kind of leaving people like, okay, I don't know. That's why I think it's leading people not to being as hyped about this as they were like Infinity War Endgame as much as they did this one. But Doctor Doom is an incredibly popular character, incredibly popular villain. I definitely think that people would be really excited to see this. I did, and also the casting of Robert Downey Jr. I think is kind of controversial in terms of that.
I
Uh,
agree. I agree.
yeah, so you do have that there as well, but I think one reason I mean, I think it'll do really well because of nostalgia, because of you're gonna have the actors from the X-Men movies come back. Possibly Hugh Jackman's gonna come back as Wolverine. You're also gonna have Tobey Maguire possibly come back as Spider-Man and maybe Andrew
Hmm.
Garfield and all the maybe 2000s superheroes. Hell, you maybe have Wesley Snipes come back or Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider, and then there'll be people who are just excited just to see that, just from nostalgia point of view, of just going like, well, I don't care. It was Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider interacting with Wesley Snipes Blade, and that's all I wanted to see. That's the only thing that made it a good movie for me. And it
I'd
was,
be there for that. I'd be there for that.
fulfill my childhood. So you do have a lot of that kind of going on. That people just like that. So yeah, and it's coming out in December now. Which December that was like usually Disney put out their Star Wars movies in December, and they soaked up all that money from all that holiday that they did because there's not a lot of competition in December. So you may have that as a factor for it as well. Um, so I think that that'll probably be a big benefit for it. But yeah, can they make it all come together? Because like the thing about Infinity War and Endgame, they were very cohesive films. They didn't feel like too much. I think the Russo brothers, even though I haven't liked their stuff outside the MCU, they've done a good job at with these Marvel movies. I still love Winter Soldier to this day. Uh, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. I think that there is a little bit of a lack of hype. We can say that. But once we have a cohesive, Thanos, we have a vision of where we're going. I'm hoping that Fantastic Four First Steps puts us in the direction of, okay, now we got a big bad. I mean, we can probably guess based off of the Galactus head, I assume, popcorn bucket, that he might be possibly involved in this entire thing. I'm hoping that Galactus is not defeated in one movie. I don't know about
Mm.
you, but I'm hoping that it's kind of like the Thanos effect of, got to gather up the troops, got to gather it up. One movie's not enough. Um, but yeah, I honestly think that we need more Thunderbolts. We need more of the emotional stories to take us in the direction that we're going, and then fill in the blanks with the action and all the other stuff that is kind of trickles to the side.
Yeah. I think one people were marked about Thunderbolts was that it made people remember what they liked about the MCU to begin with. It was like
Hmm.
now it's like this is what I remember. Really intriguing characters. Great story in it. Focusing on that,
Hmm.
like this is what I really came to the MCU for, and I think we had a lot of people that's what it really reminded of. And I think that one thing, and this is one of the last points there. I don't want to keep you for too long.
There you go.
Uh, is that I think post, the big trio, because you had Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, and Chris Evans there. Past them after Endgame, I think they were kind of left with, okay, who's going to be our new big faces of the MCU? Who's going to carry this franchise, past to the new generation? And I think with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, I think he was being primed as that next guy and
Hmm.
being the face, being the new Robert Downey Jr. And I think his passing kind of affected that. Um, and, it's like, what other interesting characters can we really look at? And I think Yelena Florence Pugh is one of those people. I think she is one of the kind of more interesting people to come out of the
Hmm.
franchise since Endgame there. I think, Namor has been really interesting. I think he was really had a great showing in Wakanda Forever.
Hmm.
Do you think that's kind of one of the things also the issue with the MCU is they don't have just like a face anymore of the MCU, like so when you
So
identify with it?
right. So the passing of Chadwick actually does kind of bring me to kind of, I guess, the issue that happened within the MCU itself was the passing of the torch from Endgame into post Endgame. It was supposed nobody knew about Chadwick. I had no idea that nobody knew about Chadwick. He thought that he was going to beat it up until a week that he had passed.
Mm,
So like I think that the he didn't want to tell anybody his condition because he didn't want people to who did Defy Bloods? Was that Spike Lee?
yes.
Okay, so he didn't tell Spike Lee about it because he didn't want him to take it easy on him.
Mm,
And he it Chadwick seemed like he was a real leader on and off the court, let's just say that.
mhm.
And he was supposed to be kind of the leader of the Avengers for the next, going forward. And with him gone, um, what was it? Captain Marvel.
Brie
What's
Larson?
the Brie Larson? I learned a little bit more about the Brie Larson situation, and it just sounds like there's just a lot of ugly actors that kind of made her not want to do the role.
Mm,
And it kind of sucks, and so those are two big kind of heads that were supposed to be, possibly coming back, but they ended up not coming back. Then they had their big bad, which was Jonathan Majors, and he self imploded
yeah.
relatively, depending on what happened. Um, and so I did see Magazine Dreams though. That was some crazy shit. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
that
I do love that man. I mean, crazy guy, but he can act. I mean, I'll say that. I mean,
yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Uh, and hell, he was making me uncomfortable at that dinner.
yeah.
But yeah, it would have been amazing to see him in the MCU to see if he was actually, he would have been a formidable foe.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, yeah, I basically what I'm saying is the passing of the torch to the new individuals just didn't happen, you
Mm.
know? And I felt like they were gonna kind of give it to like Tom
Holland.
what's Tom Holland? Yeah, I was gonna say Hiddleston. Uh I was like, I don't know, too many Toms, too many Chris's. Yeah, I thought they were gonna give it to Tom, but it felt like he didn't really want it, or there's just so much time in between him being Spider-Man on screen. It's like he's not returning till 27.
Yeah. And then
Well, in his solo movie, except
yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, a little bit with Tom is just that, I don't know, after I mean, he was pumped to be in these movies at first, it seems like, "Oh, man, I'm Spider-Man, that's so cool." And maybe he's still interested, I mean, but it's just like now I think after he's done so many of these, he's like, "Oh, fuck, I'm Spider-Man." You know what I mean? He's like, "Oh, shit, I gotta do this shit again." Like, "Oh, fuck." Like, it just doesn't seem like
yeah.
he's just that excited anymore to do these movies, which I mean, I get it, it's understandable, you wanna do other stuff, and he's, trying to do more of other projects and things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, it seemed like a little because people were calling him Iron Man Junior and everything, and it's like, okay, maybe he's gonna be the person that really step up. But it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like he's the prime candidate now to be the new face of the MCU. And like, how long are they even gonna keep him there? Because he's gonna be doing his fourth movie and all this. So it's like are they gonna try to bring in Miles Morales and maybe do that and he come
Hmm.
in? So they're doing a lot of that stuff. So we'll
Well,
see.
when we're closing out, just before I forget, I would like to say, you know, Marvel does feel like a very complex sandwich, to say anything, lack of a better word or something like that. There is very progressive parts of it, and there are very not so progressive parts about it.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it does feel like an internal struggle. And you know, I like to see when it's takes risks, but I can't blame all these directors for all the bad things that I'm seeing on screen now. I feel like I'm learning a whole lot more. The uh the council that apparently is just over Marvel films that allows them to say yes or no to anything.
Oh, they got their own Illuminati, huh? They
They
own
do. They've got their own Illuminati up there, and
uh,
even Feige has to report to it.
yeah. You wanna let that be your final word there? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. We can leave it there.
awesome stuff there. So, yeah, that was the state of the MCU there. I'd love to have you on again, Lucky Dog, if you wanna come on to help do a spoiler review of Fantastic Four. That'd be
That'd be a
awesome if
lot of
you wanna
fun. That would be a lot of
do that.
fun.